James Long, who is an associate professor of political science and also a co-founder of the Political Economy Forum at the University of Washington. James, first of all, your reaction to what's happening?
I would say it's shocking, but not surprising.
Indeed. And we saw that video message from President Donald Trump. Is that now going to put an end to what Joe Biden called a dark moment? Will it stop the violence? Will it stop people calling for a recount, saying that the election was stolen?
Well, I don't think it's going to stop any of the statements coming from the president. I don't think we should expect him now to suddenly concede or change his tone on that. I do understand that social media has put a suspension on his ability to get his messaging out. But in terms of how it will affect his supporters, I mean, I think we have to wait and see. It appears that a lot of the people that committed acts of insurrection and sedition today just walked away from the scene of the crime and were not arrested. And so I think we have to wait and see where this goes and whether or not the security in the nation's capital is enforced. But hopefully this doesn't spread, and hopefully it doesn't also spread to other states and cities.
And James, talk to us about that. We're looking at America from far away. I woke up myself and looking at these scenes, as I'm sure so many of our viewers, and thinking, how does this happen in Washington, on the U.S. Capitol?
Well, it happens because a lot of people don't accept reality, and political leadership basically abrogates its duty, and that would be not only the president, but the senior leadership in the Republican Party. I mean, I would say that armed insurrection against the U.S. government, this is not the first time that this has happened. The Whiskey Rebellion happened in the very first presidential term of George Washington, and of course the Civil War. But this is sort of unique and puts the United States among countries where post-election violence typically occurs after allegations of fraud. But the difference I would note here with the United States with other countries like Belarus or Kenya is there's actually not a single piece of evidence that any electoral malfeasance was conducted in this election. And so this protest is completely made up of essentially nothing, which does, again, it makes it different than protests we've seen in countries like Belarus, where there is evidence of fraud.
And do they go home, as President Trump asked on that video message? One woman was killed. Is this now, does this draw a line in the sand?
Well, I think the problem is even if the president is messaging or not messaging, or his account is suspended on social media, QAnon and other conspiracy groups are able to still communicate with each other. And I think now this has reached such a fever pitch that I think the president could give a statement right now that says he disavows all of this and for people to go home. I don't know that his followers will necessarily abide by that at this point. I think what will only work at this point is if law enforcement is able to secure the nation's capital, secure obviously the Capitol building, but also the rest of the city. And then, in the next 2 weeks, as the president remains in office and through to the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
And I wanted to ask you what you made of some of those prominent Republicans changing their minds, saying, we cannot continue to contest this vote.
Well, I think it's very unfortunate that it took this to get them to say that. I think they were always just kind of playing into this for political expediency, and now they're doing the same thing. That's just the tide has turned a little bit. But I do find it still unfortunate that senators like Hawley in Missouri are continuing to contest the results, at least of Arizona, in the vote this evening. And potentially there may be other states that they still intend to contest. I think that's very unfortunate because, again, there's not a single piece of evidence that any electoral malfeasance was committed in this election in favor of President-elect Joe Biden.
Thank you so much, James Long from the University of Washington. We really appreciate your comments.